everybody, my name's Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, every week I give you all the astrological information you need to have a great week. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the astrology for the week of October 12th through the 19th. We're going to cover the big important astrological influences that are coming up this week, and then we'll focus on the daily influences to help you with your planning. The first thing I want to talk about is the Harmonious sextile from Jupiter to Neptune. This began back in February. It's a 3-phase cycle, as some of them are, and it began just after Saturn and Pluto converged in the sky. So we had this very intense, negative, fearful, challenging aspect in January with Saturn and Pluto, and that was quickly followed with the first phase of the sextile from Jupiter to Neptune. So this aspect has the potential to be extremely harmonious when we have the bounty of Jupiter combining with the spiritual creativity and imagination of Neptune in a harmonious combination. There can be a very positive effect to this. Unfortunately, though, because of what happened with the pandemic situation, we weren't really able to experience this influence to the extent that I would have liked to have seen. The Jupiter sextile to Neptune can be a time of heightened creativity, heightened spirituality. The imagination is flowing. It can be a very optimistic time. And in a way, we may be seeing the effect of Jupiter sextile Neptune in the stock market, which has been just buoyed for no apparent reason. And of course, when we have Jupiter, there's a lot of optimism, and we have Neptune, there's a lot of idealism. So when you have the optimistic idealism, it sometimes means that we're not as practical and grounded as we might otherwise be. In any case, the final phase of the Jupiter sextile to Neptune occurs this week. It's one kind of final push of that creative, intuitive, imaginative energies. In our personal lives, we can use this influence, which begins about a week before and will last about a week after the exact alignment, which is this week. We can use this influence to help us with anything that's creative, any kind of meditation, any kind of intuitive learning that we want to do. This is a really good time for that. Mercury is going to turn retrograde this week also. I'm going to post a separate video about Mercury retrograde, so watch for that. Most people now know about Mercury retrograde. It's kind of the doorway now to people learning about astrology. I think people first start reading about their horoscopes and they become interested. But once they learn about Mercury retrograde, then they become convinced. And the reason for the reputation of Mercury retrograde as causing problems is because when Mercury is retrograde, it's actually closer to the Earth than at other times. So its influence is very personal. It's kind of in our face. Whereas usually we can just go through the motions of our life. We don't really pay attention. When Mercury is retrograde, it really calls on us to be more focused, to pay more attention. And if we're not, if we try to just sleepwalk through our lives as we tend to do, that's when we tend to start to have issues. Because Mercury turns retrograde 4 times a year and is retrograde 3 weeks at a time, that's about 12 weeks of retrograde activity. When you add the shadow, it's almost half the year that supposedly we're supposed to not do anything. Don't sign any contracts. Don't start a new job. Obviously, we can't do this. We can't put our lives on hold, especially now any more than they already are. So it's important to just realize that we need to be more focused. We need to pay a little closer attention. I have a bad cat there in the background. We have to pay more attention. We have to be a little more cognizant of what we're doing, and if we have to make an agreement, just be very careful that what you're saying is what you mean. I just had to put the cat out. So the other big thing this week is that we have a new moon in Libra. Now, a new moon in Libra brings our attention to the realm of aesthetics, beauty, harmony, relationships, the alignments between two people, balancing opposites. All of these things are the domain of Libra. So generally with a new moon in Libra, we're striving for a new way to find balance in our life, to integrate opposites in our life, to find a way to balance our own needs with our needs in partnership. That's a little more difficult at this new moon because, oh, guess what? Mars is opposite the new moon. So Mars is the planet it's kind of opposite of Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Mars is in its own sign of Aries, the opposite sign to Libra. Mars is all about drive and desire and need. Libra is about compatibility and harmony and integration. So there's some stress here, and you may find in your life that your attention is really drawn to any areas where you feel out of balance, where maybe you've been giving too much, or maybe you feel like you haven't been giving enough. Maybe you feel like you've been too selfish. That's not true of 90% of my clients who have the opposite problem, but perhaps you do. It will be highlighted now with this new moon in Libra. There's a need to find that integration and that balance. And of course, both of these, Mars and the new moon, are in a square to the Capricorn planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So there's a fair amount of planetary stress under this new moon. Now that may sound bad, and it could be somewhat uncomfortable, but the positive result of this is that there is a call to action. If any conflict, if any stress comes up, there will be the energy behind it to create change in order to find more integration. You know, the different aspects that are at work here is what kind of structures do I build in my life with the Capricorn planets? How well am I asserting my own needs and going after what I really want myself with Mars and Aries? And then with the new moon in Libra, can I bring this all together into some way that brings me a sense of balance, harmony, equanimity? This new moon is a little more complicated because at the time of the new moon, the black moon Lilith, which is a point in the sky, it's not a planetary body at all, but it has been very significant in the world of the Me Too movement. It has to do with the sort of moral outrage that we feel against oppression. You know, we can tie it into a feminine rage against the patriarchy. So the Black Moon Lilith has some anger and some push behind her, and she's conjunct Mars at this new moon, which means she's opposite the moon and she's opposite the sun, and she's squaring the Capricorn planets. So that adds this other level of not just your garden variety aggression and, you know, inner conflict, but any place in your life where you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, you're going to really feel it. And again, this might be uncomfortable, but we can read these messages of discomfort as something that can help us to grow and evolve, something that we need to change in our life in order to make it more effective. The new moon is in a trine to Ceres, so that means both the sun and the moon are in a trine to Ceres. And Ceres is the goddess of the grain, you know, in mythology. But astrologically, she has a lot to do with how we feed our souls. Not so much our bodies, but it has to do with our very physical incarnation, how we feel about it. People that have Ceres and a stressed aspect, especially to the moon or to Venus, often have eating disorders, for example. The idea of food being nourishment gets somewhat distorted. But in this new moon, Ceres is in a harmonious trine. So finding ways to feel good in our bodies, to eat delicious foods, and to maybe have a massage or do some of these classic self-care things. This is a wonderful time for that. These self-care modalities are really useful right now anyway, because with so much fiery energy, Mars and everything being triggered and activated, it's more possible than ever to be overwhelmed by a mental kind of exhaustion. Under this new moon, where we find a way to bring more beauty and more peacefulness into our life, we can also use the power of Ceres to help to balance the mental energy, the fire energy, and help us to feel calmer and more relaxed. This is going to be especially important at this new moon because Mercury, the planet of the mind, is in the sign of Scorpio, where it's very intense. Mercury in Scorpio, which I have myself, needs to know everything. It's very deep thinking and isn't satisfied with the easy answer. And because Mercury is in Scorpio in the sky, we're all being affected by this to some extent or another. So the mind is always going right now. The mind is so intensely engaged in every aspect of our life. And when Mercury is opposite Uranus, the planet of electricity and radiation and radical change, rebellious ideas, there's quite a bit of volatility. This isn't going to help what's going on in the political world, certainly, as we approach the election. But in our personal lives, that dissonance can be disturbing. So if you find yourself feeling a little more hyped up than usual, then it's a really perfect time to take advantage of this wonderful Ceres energy. We begin the week on Monday, October 12th, with the moon in the sign of Leo. When the moon is in Leo, we tend to be more centered on ourself and how we feel about ourselves and our lives and how we can make this better, how we can demonstrate to the world that we are special. Having a healthy ego is very important for our psychological health. The moon in Leo has been kind of a big relief because all the other energies are so intense. But the moon is making a trine to Mars on Monday. And so the activity and the energy of Mars is harmonizing with the moon to help to give us an infusion of energy that we can use so that we can energize the things that we want to accomplish. Monday is the exact alignment of the Jupiter sextile to Neptune, so it might be a lovely day just to honor that with something creative or something musical or some meditation, maybe some writing. Anything creative is very well aspected for this Monday. On Monday, we also have a harmonious sextile from Mercury, which is in Scorpio, as I said, to Venus, which is in Virgo. Venus in Virgo is very grounded, very sort of organized. So when Mercury and Venus connect, that's another amplifier for creativity. It helps us to be able to organize our thoughts and our ideas so that we can put them into motion. Then on Tuesday, the moon enters Virgo at 12:56 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Please adjust for your own locality. With the moon in Virgo, this is always a really big help for me to clean my house and get organized. I have new planners. I have set that day aside to really start to organize all of the little details of my life. One of the purposes of Virgo is improvement. This is where the reputation for criticism and perfectionism comes in. But it's really more appropriately this idea of improvement, improving our lives, seeing where things aren't quite right and improving them. It's an earth sign, so anytime the moon is in an earth sign, it's a very good time to spend some of your time in nature, connecting with things of the earth. Also on Tuesday the 13th, that's the exact day of the Mercury Retrograde. So just as a reminder, when Mercury's retrograde, it's a very good time to do anything sort of famously that begins with an RE, to renovate your house, to redo your website, to rethink an idea that you might have had, to remove things from your life. It's a very good time for purging, closet cleaning. It's also a good time actually for anything involving repair. It's also obviously very good for anything having to do with car repair, home repair, that sort of thing. It's just generally a good idea not to let astrology cause you to live a life of fear. So you just take the knowledge that Mercury is retrograde, use it to be careful and to be precise with your communication and with any messaging. And then you just expect that glitches are going to happen. It's not going to be the end of the world. Also on Tuesday, the sun is opposite Mars. It's an important piece of the Mars retrograde cycle that we're in the middle of. This just sort of amplifies the energy of Mars that we've been talking about. It's a very important time now with Mars so prevalent in the sky to really do an assessment, and after Mercury turns retrograde, a reassessment of our goals and our desires and what we really feel in our heart we want to bring into our life. Mars is, as I've said, all about drive and desire, and Mars is so strong right now that if we don't know what we want and if we don't have any clue about how we want to live our life going forward, then we really can't get there. And the frustration of that with Mars so strong can be very intense. So you can work with that energy by asking yourself these questions. What is it that I really want right now? Obviously, because of the situation in the world right now with COVID, we can't all have what we want, and things are changing in the world. But we know the kinds of energies we want in our life. We know the kind of life we want to live. And it's very important always to keep that in mind, to keep that map in front of us as we traverse. Otherwise, who knows where you're going to end up? So have a map, see what it is that you want, and just keep reassessing it. And Mars will help you right now. Late in the day on Tuesday, that's Eastern time, remember, the moon will conjoin Venus in Virgo. This is a wonderful time of internal harmony. It's a beautiful time for relationships and for love and for the heart really being able to open easily. Then on Wednesday, October 14th, the Virgo moon will harmonize with the Capricorn planets. So here we have the moon in Virgo, which is grounded and wants everything to work properly and efficiently. The moon harmonizes with Jupiter to help us to feel good, harmonizes with Pluto to help strengthen the power of transformation, and it harmonizes with Saturn to help us to build the structures that we need in order to put these things in our life in motion. On Thursday, October 15th, the moon will leave Virgo for Libra at 1:54 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. When the moon moves from Virgo to Libra, there's a shift from the sort of grounded analysis of life to a strong need for balance and harmony and equanimity. When the moon is in Libra, we really want peace. We want peaceful interactions between ourselves and the people around us. We want peace in the world. We want peace in our communities. We're more sensitive to stress. So the moon in Libra will, at the new moon, when it reaches 23 degrees, oppose Mars, where that equanimity is not going to be very easily gained. So it will be useful to use this time in the early degrees of Libra to find that balance, to find that center of equanimity inside of ourselves. Any of you who do yoga will recognize this from balance poses where you have to really center all your energy and your core be strong so that you can find that balance. And that's really what will help us when the moon is in the early degrees of Libra. And that's much of the day on Thursday, October 15th. However, the sun will be in a square to Pluto. The sun in Libra is squaring the Capricorn planet. So we've had the sun square Jupiter, the sun will square Pluto, and then the sun will square Saturn on Sunday, October 18th. Solar transits don't really usually have a strong impact, but because the sun this week is part of the new moon configuration, which is stressing all these planets, these solar aspects are going to be more important, and they're going to extend the period in which the new moon is effective. Usually new moon energies last for about 3 days after the event, but because of the sun squaring Pluto and then Saturn, it's going to last for maybe a few days after that. One thing I forgot to mention about the new moon is that the new moon is actually in a harmonious trine to the North Node. So the North Node is the direction that we're headed. It's the future. It's opposite the South Node of the past. With the new moon in a trine to the North Node, that does suggest that we're on the train. The train is moving to our higher purpose. And we might flail around a little bit. We might make some mistakes. But this new moon harmonizing with the North Node is really going to facilitate this process for us to continue to move forward. Then on Friday, October 16th, we have the new moon in Libra, which I've already talked about. Even though there's some stressors and some challenges, the ultimate effect is overall positive thanks to this North Node alignment. Then on Saturday, October 16th, the moon moves into Scorpio at 1:05 a.m. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Traditionally, the modern ruler is Pluto, but the traditional ruler is Mars. Mars shows the passion and the drive of Scorpio. So having the moon in Scorpio for a couple of days will help us to more easily integrate all this Mars energy. It's a good time for any kind of conversation that requires focus. It's potentially an intense time for conversations, but it's a time when there can be resolution because we are going so deep. Then to finish the week on Sunday, October 18, we have a challenging square from the Sun to Saturn. So this completes the challenging squares from the Sun to first Jupiter and then Pluto and now Saturn, which have been going on for about a week. Because it's the Sun, it can illuminate issues that are already going on. And in this case, with the Sun being part of the new moon, which was also triggering all of these planets, that has really activated this square to the Capricorn planets, which is going to have us asking a lot of questions about how do we build our life now? What kind of structures do we really want to have in place as we move forward into this new world? I do believe that we are on the downward slope of the stress from these planetary cycles that we've had this year. Saturn and Pluto, though, are going to be within a few degrees of their conjunction until December. And then when Saturn and Jupiter both move into Aquarius, that's going to be a big shift. So we are on the downward slope. I know a lot of you are just exhausted and tired and weary, and we don't really know what's coming. But we are on the downward slope, and we can really start to begin to create this new world that's coming. It's not going to be the same. It's all going to be different. It's not going to happen right away. It's not like December, Saturn goes into Aquarius and suddenly everything is different. Anytime there's a big shift of energy, we have to let go of what can't come with us. That's part of what's all of this that's going on right now. So with that, I'd like to thank you for making it all the way through this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.